And we are live. This is going to be a fun show. Hope you guys are joining me. This is a big show because this is episode 30 of the Super Terb Podcast. Before I start, I'm going to share this to my my personal page. And then we are going to get going. Let me go ahead and tag my guest. Bam. Boom. Boom. See? Saving that. Hitting record. And welcome to the Super Terb Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Out of Turbo Group, Coldwell Banker HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb, a.k.a. Coach Terb. And I am so excited about tonight because this is a big podcast. Not only two of my great buddies joining me, I'm going to keep that a surprise, but this is episode 30 of the Super Terb Podcast. I started this podcast last fall mainly to talk to local business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, hosts, whatever it may be, for them to tell their story. And then, of course, sprinkle in maybe some sports. I like featuring my local beer of the week, as well as I always like to talk a little bit of real estate. But before I get into my real estate update, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my guests that are coming on today. I have Gray Rogers and Kevin Sullivan. They're the hosts of the Two Dads Run podcast, which I'm a big fan of. They started that not too long ago. I'm going to bring them on. I'm going to have them tell you their story. I'm going to ask some questions. They don't know what's coming, and maybe just tell what they love about the podcast. So we're going to have a blast there. But before I bring them on, I have a little bit of real estate. So we're in July. We're in July in a normal market. And I say normal market. We really haven't had a normal market for a couple of years. And, of course, with COVID, everything got amplified with supply. But in the fact that July, typically the market slows down. So I was really interested going into the 4th of July holiday, how the market would be, because I know everybody's amped up to go on vacation, get out of town. And the stats that we just received about a week ago from the Triangle MLS for Wake County showed something pretty incredible. Our inventory is still at about 2 weeks of inventory, but our average appreciation in 12 months, from May of 2020 to May of 2021, our average appreciation now is up 23%. 23%. And in saying that, our inventory is still very low, but I was still interested. So we had a listing go live, and we purposely bumped it out a week. We went coming soon, July 8th, showing start July 15th, and boy, the market has not slowed down because of the lack of inventory. There's so many buyers out there. We had 80 showings on this property. 80 showings and 22 offers for our seller to choose from. So I just left a listing appointment this afternoon. Past clients of mine, they want to relocate, and they're thinking, Terb, where is the window? We don't want to miss the window of selling. I said, you're not missing a window. We just got to market you correctly, list you correctly, release you to the wild, let as many buyers see you, and let the buyer and the market tell you where the best price is for you. Of course, we got to list it correctly, and at that point, the buyers are going to decide because of how much they want a home. In saying that, those 22 offers, there's 21 buyers that still need a house out there. If you're thinking about selling, or you just want to know how much equity you're sitting on, I'm getting a lot of past clients just reach out to me and saying, hey, Terb, can I just know what do you think we'll sell our house for? Please reach out to me. I'd love to give you, obviously, a no obligation market analysis, show you what we can do with the Super Terb marketing strategy to get you max value. And you see out there all the time saying, you have a guaranteed offer, no showings, what have you. We're going to set you up. So not only do you have one guaranteed offer, but you could have 20 guaranteed offers, and that would be a lot of fun. So in saying that, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to bring Gray Rogers, Kevin Sullivan back on the other side. So stay tuned.
Yeah, get him out of here.
Add him to the stream. And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. I'm your host again, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert. I'm a little amped up here, guys. I got my Monster Energy, no sugar, of course, so I'm a little bit amped up. But I got my guests here, Gray Rogers, Kevin Sullivan. Say hello.
What's up, everybody?
This is fantastic. I got the two dads in the flesh for the Run podcast. So first off, before we start, I've already introduced you a few times, but go ahead, tell everyone who's watching, your names, where you're from, and we'll start from there.
What's up, guys? What's up, guys? I am Gray, one of the hosts of the Two Dads Run podcast. Grew up in Hope Mills, North Carolina with my co-host Kevin. We grew up just one neighborhood away from each other, but grew up in right outside of Fayetteville and Hope Mills. lived in North Carolina pretty much my entire life until I was in my late teens, early 20s, moved up to the DC area, back here now in Cary, and just working and started a podcast with my boy.
That's good. So, I mean, Gray and I, we grew up. Gray and I have known each other for about 25 years. I mean, yeah, I live right now in Apex with my wife, Adria. We've been married 15 years. We have two beautiful daughters, Finley and Farah, ages 7 and 5. And as far as, Gray and I, our background's been track, cross country for a very long time. And then most recently into ultra marathons, long distance running, and whatever the world's toughest triathlons have to offer. He and I are pretty much going after it. I'm also a USA Triathlon coach right now, coaching Gray and a couple other people right now, getting to their first triathlon finish line. But our podcast, it started not too long ago. Gray and I, we've typically been going on runs for a very long time. We talk quite a bit, so not too many people like to run with us. They usually run with us once and never want to come back again because we just talk too much. So Gray and I decided to, let's just take this to a podcast.
And I guess I should have mentioned that married with two beautiful daughters myself. 7-3. I'm a little nervous, even though we have our own show. The tables are turned here, so it's actually us getting the questions.
Yeah, and so you guys already kind of jumped to my next question: how you guys knew each other. I know you went way back, and it's funny, Kevin. You say that people don't want to run with you. If I ran with you, I'd just be behind you. So I don't have much I'd really be talking other than saying. I
see your posts. You run out every day. You can definitely hang.
Yeah, the average mile is probably a little slower. I see you guys out there, but no, I get out there out and about. And so you guys started this podcast, I think, not too long ago. And so I know you mentioned you guys just like talking running, but what made you get it off the ground? Just say, because a lot of people say I want to do a podcast, and there's a lot that goes into it. But honestly, it's the commitment and just the effort of putting forward. So. What made you say, hey, guys, let's do this podcast, and where did the topic come from?
Well, so we started, just like Kevin said, just when we started running together again, we had reconnected after being, life taking us different directions for several years. He was living in Indy and St. Louis and things like that. I was in the DC area, but we reconnected several years ago to go see our high school cross country coach because we were teammates back in high school for cross country and track. So we went down to Hope Mills to see him capture his 20th consecutive conference title. And from there, it was just kind of, we started going on runs and we would just chat, and it helped both of us, stay connected to the sport. And it was also, great to catch up after all this time apart. So we both kind of had the idea separately, but then once one of us said, hey, I kind of want to start a podcast, the other one was like, yeah, me too. How about that?
Right.
Because I know Kevin, had some aspirations of a much larger thing and revolving a running, training, and I'll let him talk about that. But it was just something that we both wanted to do, and we started talking about it. And it's quite frankly, I mean, even since February when we got started, it's evolved quite a bit. And I think we are 18 episodes in now, and we're really starting to find our stride, no pun intended, as to who we are and what we want to talk about. And the big thing for us is we have guests on some shows. We've had elite runners, Olympians. We've had elite triathletes, doctors, all kinds of stuff, shoe designers and developers.
We just had an Ironman world champion as well.
Yeah, I mean, and people that have launched their own shoe line.
So what do you guys like to cover? I mean, I know you just mentioned some things there, but what do you guys like to discuss on the podcast? Because we're at the end, you're going to tell everybody where to go to see your podcast or listen to it. But give me some snippets.
Yeah, I think it's. Go ahead, Kev. Go ahead. I was going to say, we've talked about it a few times in a lot of our episodes, as if you saw someone, some of your role models in the sport, in triathlon or in just strictly running. It can be somebody that founded the actual running shoe company that you're wearing, and you'd want to just pick their brain on how did you get started. And we had an opportunity to do that not too long ago, where this guy, he's a few younger than us, and he's got one of the most popular ultra running shoes out there right now. And it's, man, how does somebody like him, who's just a normal guy, younger than us, how are they able to get there, and what type of mindset does it take? And being the two dads run, we also focus on athletes, these elite world athletes that have the responsibilities of being parents and some of these also having a job, and also right now some of them are actually in Tokyo fighting for gold. So just really, as if you were to see somebody up in a bar that you're like, oh my goodness, there's that person, and you had an opportunity for an hour to just kind of sit there and pick their brain. It's kind of really what some of our conversations have geared around.
That's and really how they balance all of that too. So how do you balance the training piece with the parenthood? Or if it's not, they haven't all been elite athletes, right? So if they're not an elite athlete, but they love to train and compete, how do you balance your career with parenthood and training? Because it's a lot. I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm training 9 times in 6 days over the course of a week. So on top of a podcast, on top of raising 2 girls, on top of, my full-time career, which you are very familiar with.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it is a lot. And so it's very interesting to hear how other people are able to compartmentalize or prioritize those things together.
Well, I think what is obvious too is that you have a passion for it. So when you have a passion for it, you make a commitment towards it, and it's all about scheduling. And I know you mentioned before when we were getting started, what was the highest level you ran at?
So the highest level I competed at was high school.
High school?
Yep.
And when you ran, was that cross country, endurance, sprinting?
So yeah, I ran cross country and track. So I did predominantly middle distance. Kevin went a little bit further.
Kevin, repeat what you did. I know you had there was a list there.
No, so I ran collegiately. I got a scholarship at UNC Greensboro, which was pretty neat back in the day. And then probably like most athletes, figured out that the sport actually becomes a job, and then partying actually tends to be a little funner at that time period. So I did that for a couple of years. I actually ran track and cross country in college, and after that, just kind of put on the back burner for a few years, and then got back into it. And when I did get back into the sport, got back into it hard, which was, I think I was sitting on the couch watching one of those NBC specials with the Ironman Kona World Championship, and that just sparked me to be, I've got to do something, and that's what I want to do, and I want to train for it and eventually get to that point. So I've had an opportunity to do some pretty cool races around the world, and getting ready to get here soon. Yeah.
What's the longest run you guys have done?
Kev?
So the longest run, and you know what? Thank you, Michael, because you guys were a big sponsor for what was my longest run. So I went out to do a 100-mile ultra marathon. So yes, you heard that right. It was a 100-mile ultra marathon, and
like in a row.
It was nonstop, and actually until I collapsed. And so I collapsed at mile 77. So the goal was to do 100 that day, about 23 hours and some change over on Kildare Road. Probably close to about 4 a.m. The body just had enough. And so that was only a couple months ago. So 77 miles was the longest, and that was the longest running. Yes, running.
How about you, Greg?
So longest run ever would be probably 15 miles. I'm a little more about speed. I did a half marathon a couple of months ago. I took a very long break from the sport. So when I was in high school, it was all cross country. So 5K, 3.1 miles, that kind of stuff. But I took about a 20-year break. So I'm only about a year back into the sport. So ran a half marathon at the end of March. I've got a triathlon coming up at the end of September. 10 weeks later, I've got a full marathon on the books for at Kiowa Island. And then I'll have a nice little break before the Tobacco Road Marathon in March when that comes back on its regular schedule.
That's where I'm going to be.
Yeah, baby.
Here's the question I have. What do you love about running? What gets you going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is an excellent it's an excellent way to just be out, clear your head, and just go. It's not something I have to think about. It's not something that, is a burden to my day. It's really, I have been in such a great place mentally and over the last year, just getting back into running. And it's just something that I didn't realize how much I missed it. But as soon as I was back, I was like, okay, I'm hooked. And that, for me, the mental part of it is just so important. And I just feel great when I start my day off with a good run or a good training session. I just feel so much better than when I don't.
Yeah, all the above of what Grace said, but Michael, it's all you need is a pair of running shoes, really. So unlike some other sports where you really need to invest and invest a lot for some of the equipment.
Triathlon.
It's just nonstop. But with running, all you need is just a good pair of running shoes, and the community, the people that you meet along the way, all different shapes and sizes and ages. And no matter if, with these 5Ks, if somebody's going to go run a sub 15, or if somebody's going to go out there and do their first one and just want to finish, everybody's cheering each other on and really just pushing everybody to just be their best version out there and being outside. There goes a lot to be said with what we're just now kind of coming back out of, or coming out of something going back into with the COVID, that you just want to be outside. And I think that's where that podcast came from, was, man, just seeing how many people were out on the Tobacco Trail when Gray and I would go run Saturday morning, and you had no idea who the person was running towards you, going the opposite direction, but you're more tired of saying, hey, good morning, by the time when you're finished and actually running. So I'd say the community, and that still continues to be the best thing, is just finding out, who else is also running.
It's like a community.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just starting out, what is one piece of advice for maybe someone, like I said, just starting out, don't know where to start, and hey, I can't even run a mile? What's one thing you would say, okay, this is what you need to do, and then build on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just get out. Just, it's going to start with walking. So if somebody's never actually ran before and actually ran a mile, again, go to one of your local running shoes. There's quite a bit in the area. Not trying to give any type of favoritism, but you have Runology, you have in Holly Springs, Pace Yourself, you have some other ones. Fleet Feet, they do a great job in getting people actually, getting set up. But just go out and just walk, and you'll be amazed, especially if you go Saturday morning. For the people that listen in the area, just go out and walk Saturday morning at the American Tobacco Trail. Guarantee you walk away with somebody that's going to probably want to meet you out there on the next Saturday morning. But I'd say first advice is, don't be intimidated. Nobody's actually judging you. Nobody's looking at you or trying to race you by any means. They're just happy that you're out there. So just get out there and at least start with a walk.
Great.
Yeah. Kevin completely stole the entire answer there. I guess the best advice is just, running is very intimidating. And especially when you go to some place like the American Tobacco Trail, and people, there's some people out there that fly. There's college teams that go out there and train. There's pros that go out there and train, because we do have a pro training group in the area. You don't compare yourself to those guys. And gals. It's start with, like Kevin said, start with a walk, and then run for 30 seconds, walk some more, run another 30 seconds. If it's something that you want to do, you got to have the motivation to get out there and do it. Because at first it sucks. I'm not going to lie. When you first start running, it's hard. And, the commitment to it and the commitment to improving is just, you got to have it, or you're not going to enjoy it. And that's fine. But if you want to do it, start small, start slow. I need to take my own advice there sometimes, but just get out there, pound some pavement.
What's the tip that you could give that maybe somebody doesn't know on endurance running? Is it, do you stick your toes in a certain direction? Do you lean some way? Do you run on your toes? What's something that you could say, hey, do this tip?
So, great question.
Now, this is something that maybe not everybody knows. And also, Jordan, my assistant, she's chiming in. I send her selfies of me running in the morning. And I told her eventually she will be out there running too. And I'll get her hooked as well.
I will say cadence. Your cadence is very important. So you want to have probably your cadence up in the 160 range. Anything that's 150 or lower, that means your form is probably struggling, that you're probably working too hard, your stride might be a little too long. So your cadence. I think nowadays people have smart watches, and if you don't, they're very cheap watches out there that can actually track your cadence. So the cadence that's about 160 or higher that's typically displaying that you've got good form, and you don't necessarily have to run fast and sprint and where your legs feel like they're just never picking up off the ground. So it takes a while to practice up to it. But I'll tell you, Gray and I have been fortunate to link up with, I feel like I'm name dropping people, but the running PTs, they've helped Gray and I continue to be injury free. When we do get injured, they help us and correct our form. They get us on a gait analysis and a bunch of other technical terms. But for somebody that's new, I definitely don't want to throw anything like that out there for them. But yeah, if somebody like, hey, if there's one thing that you should want to continue to focus on outside of form, because form, there is a lot that goes into it, I'd say just ensure that your cadence is up. I continuously look at it. If I find my cadence very low, then I'm going through the checklist in my mind as far as what's breaking down, what do I need to do to pick it up, and then I'll see after maybe a half a mile, I'll see that cadence start to pick up, and I've corrected myself. Great, you might have a different answer.
No, and so what Kevin means by cadence is basically how many steps you're taking in a minute, right? So when he says 160, 80 steps per minute per side. Right. So, and that's very important.
I should have clarified that, but yes, thanks, Greg.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to keep it for beginners, Kev. Come on.
I was getting to that. I didn't know if cadence was like yelling or something.
Michael, you don't know what cadence is? Come on.
No.
Yeah. So you definitely want to be, you want to use shorter strides, which is something that when I was in high school, I would tend to fall back on. I have really long legs. So I'm 6'1" and I'm like 3/4 legs. Right. So I would try to use those to my advantage and have this super long stride. And really that was kind of counterproductive to what I was trying to do. So, definitely shortening that stride, keeping everything stacked up underneath of you, being light and quick on your feet. But other than, not to completely steal Kevin's answer, but I would say most people could benefit from running slower. And that is another thing that people really struggle with when they come into the sport. They're like, well, how am I going to run fast if I'm always running slow? Right. So when we're running slower, and trust me, I need to take this advice for myself more often. But when you're training slower, there's a lower probability of getting injured. And if you're injured, you can't run. So you can't build that base. You can't build that endurance. So I would say for most people, just slow down, because that's how you build that base. That's how you stay injury free and actually make it to the starting line. Runners are some of the most injured athletes on the planet. So that's a great start to being injury free.
And as we talk, it's just like those little things keep coming up. Hey, don't forget about this one. Stretching. That's the other thing too. As we get older, especially for men, that's something I never did, even in running collegiately, and even with some of my other big races, I never stretched before or after. But now that's a huge benefit, especially if you're anybody that's in their late 30s and on up. Stretching becomes a savior for you.
What do you guys listen to when you're running? Does it vary?
I'm not listening to anything right now. I've actually been really focusing on not taking my music with me at all. A, because it's not allowed on triathlon. And B, I think that really helps that mental side. And I do like to take music every once in a while, or I'll listen to a podcast. I listen to tons of podcasts. So if I do take something with me, that's probably what I'm listening to. But here lately, for the last probably month and a half, 2 months, I've just been going out without AirPods at all.
Wow. Commend that.
Yeah. No, I'll do that in my morning runs. So in the morning, if it's very, very early and there's nobody out there, I do. That's more for the safety piece. I've just had this paranoia. If it's like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, that somebody could be creeping up behind me. So I don't want to have anything in my ears that's maybe preventing me from hearing that. But I do listen to music, and it's all across the board. But I have a couple playlists, and just as far as that gets me, hyped up, Black Keys, Wu-Tang Clan.
Old school.
I go old school.
I like it.
I mean, who else? Tool, Deftones, and a lot of like old Jay-Z, and a lot of old Outkast. So it's a lot of old school mix that just takes me back to certain times, and even sometimes certain races where I would kind of flip that switch in my mind and I could hear that song playing and I get that extra energy boost. And so I like hearing that on, especially my long runs. If I go to American Tobacco Trail, it's me, it's for sure headphones in that playlist.
I found myself getting more audible, like audiobooks, especially the long runs, just something to listen to, especially even the motivational or something about my business. It just kind of gets me, going, because when you're, let's say, running 8 to 10 miles, after a while, it's just foot after foot. And that's what I've gotten onto. And then I've had different tracks as well, depending on how far I'm running. What's the coolest running story you guys can share?
Coolest running story. You know what? There's quite a few of them, but we just got back from a trip in Baltimore.
I was just going to ask about that, so you beat me to it.
Okay, so I'll wait on that. So I won't use that story there.
No, go with it. We could segue. It's good.
Go with that one. So we had an opportunity to go meet one of our idols and one of the people that we hosted on our podcast, and see their headquarters, their new opening in downtown Baltimore. And a lot of people that we had followed from afar on social media that have a huge following. And I mentioned earlier that we got to meet a guy who actually invented a trail shoe. So Michael Proshek, who invented a trail shoes, and it's a very popular brand right now. Got to run with him, got to run with a guy named Ben Johnson, who is huge with the Bowerman Track Club and has got over 50,000 followers, and
a bunch.
Just a lot of just people that every time we looked around before this 5K started on the Inner Harbor, like, I know that person, and then it was not an official race. It was just, hey guys, this is just a fun run for the grand opening. Everybody's here just to have a good time and mingle. And that's what that race was. And everybody had the same mindset that, we're just going to take it easy. We talked to so many people that morning. It was like, we're just going to take it easy. And it was about 90 degrees, humid, Saturday morning in Baltimore. I'm like, great. I think everybody was glad with that decision. But the moment the first person took off, it turned into a full out 5K. Like everybody trying to set their PR, and people were walking, meaning people were passing out because of the heat, these elite runners. And that was probably the funnest race, just because of the people that we're surrounded with. To start off with, hey, it's gonna be a fun run, and just the like-minded personalities of so many people there. Everybody just flipped to race mode, and that's a hard switch to turn off, especially when you're elbowing next to people that, let me just test my strength with them. So that was a pretty fun run.
What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I won't second that, but I will second that. I mean, that was an awesome time. It was a really cool 5K right on the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. Like Kevin was saying, some heavy hitters in the running social media world, both in YouTube and Instagram. I mean, just some massive personalities, and everyone was incredibly cool and welcoming. But otherwise, I mean, I think for me was the first time that I towed the start line again after a long hiatus. So that was that half marathon in March. I had a list of goals in mind that I wanted to hit. And I had a couple of them, some that I felt were a little more ambitious and perhaps too ambitious. But getting on the start line again after 20 years away from it, when I was in high school, I took it for granted a lot. This is just what we did. We were good. We won conference championship after conference championship. We were the first team from the county to make it to states in like 15 years. And so that was cool, but that was just what we did, right? It wasn't something that we appreciated back then. But when I towed that start line again, I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. I had a really good day, surpassed all of my goals.
You flew.
Actually finished top 3.
I saw it. What was your time?
1:29.18. So it's a 6:49 a mile pace for 13 miles.
We would have needed walkie-talkies to continue talking.
I mean, it was far from an elite field. I mean, that's not even top 3 age group. And
right?
In most,
that was a phenomenal time.
So what's your goal for the Two Dads Run podcast? What's your goal?
I mean, for me, and I think I just established this goal recently coming off of Baltimore. Going into it, it was nothing but a passion project. It was something that Kevin and I were just having fun doing. It was an awesome outlet. It was an incredible opportunity to talk to people that we otherwise would not have the chance to do. But now if we can contribute with this show to the running community in any way, then I feel like we've been a success. Seeing that in Baltimore with Believe in the Run and the launch of their headquarters and all of that, and to see the impact that they've had on the running community with people coming from all over the country, literally. I mean, I thought it was impressive that we were driving up from North Carolina. There were people from Chicago, Minnesota, California, and just all over the place. That's so awesome. If we can have some kind of impact, even tiny, then I feel like we've been successful.
Yeah, and we talked about that on the way back. Fortunately, it wasn't an 8-hour drive back like it was on the way up to Northern Virginia, which I don't recommend anybody doing. I feel for people that have to drive up to Northern Virginia, but that's exactly that. It was also, some of the other neat things too. We had an opportunity to meet our listeners, people that have been following us. And again, we just recently dropped episode 18, and we've only been doing this for about 4 months, and we have people that are consistently listening in and messaging us, and they drove from New Jersey and from New York to come down for the opening, but then to also meet us. And that was really inspiring. And you asked the question earlier as far as what's one thing that you would give to somebody that's getting into running, and that's what we would want to continue to do, is just get as many people involved in this type of community, and who knows what type of passion projects they might themselves create from, hey, I listened to the Two Dads Run podcast, and these guys weren't Olympians, but they're challenging themselves every single day. They have just as many things going on throughout their days and weeks as much as the normal person, the average person, but they're still finding a way to have fun with life and getting out there and doing the things that they like doing, like running and meeting new and interesting people. So yeah, I think if anything, just to be able to inspire others to kind of maybe do the same thing that we're doing. It also has somewhat of a heavy schedule, like all of us.
Who's your dream interview?
Man, we've had, we've actually had a couple of those people already, and it's funny. We get like little high school girls when these guys come on. Because Gray will have a couple of his that he'll reach out, and I know that he's nervous before the show. And then I've been able to have a couple of mine, and he sees how nervous I get. We actually came up with somebody that we said like that would be huge if we were able to get him. And I think I messaged you too, and you said go ahead, reach out to him. Who was it? It was like the other day.
Iron Cowboy.
Oh, it was the Iron Cowboy. So this guy out in Utah just completed. He was the Concord 100. So he just did 100 Ironman distance triathlons in 100 days. So he had the record at 50, and he also competed in the Patagonian X-Tri in Patagonia, Chile, which is the world's toughest triathlon. So
Kev, tell them how long.
Have you reached out to David Goggins?
David Goggins would be the guy too. I mean,
his book is amazing.
Goodness, I drop quotes from David Goggins on a daily basis, and I love it.
Did you listen or read to Living with the Seal?
What's that?
The audio book. I think it's called Living with the Seal. I can find it. but it's where David Goggins actually came in and lived with the gentleman.
Oh, that was, I think, how I first heard of David Goggins, because he
had him come live with him like 30 days. It's awesome. It's awesome. Listen to. I was laughing while I was running, and just imagine having Goggins there in your house and work, and having you drop doing 100 burpees in a second, and sit-ups and running 5 miles, then another 10 miles that night, and it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. His recent book is great. Yeah. Also,
it's awesome.
I'm not sure if you read his autobiography.
The last one, what was it? Was actually with the whole. Yeah, it was great. I mean, and it's not even so much about running. It's just the mental mindset and things, and it's amazing how much, as humans, we have so much more down deep that we don't realize we have, as far as mental toughness, or just, when I feel like I'm getting tired, like I know we have more in that. It's funny, I'll have Goggins like yelling at me as I'm jogging, or even doing something with work or something that I'm trying to get accomplished. So I've got some rapid questions for you guys. This is always the fun part of the podcast. You guys ready? Sure. And you guys figure out who you want to go first. All right.
Go, Greg.
Good stuff. Right, okay. Favorite place you've traveled?
Punta Cana.
Maui, Hawaii.
One place you want to travel you haven't been
to? Europe in general.
Patagonia, Chile.
That is very interesting. Okay. Favorite movie? Now, this one's hard. I know there's different genres, so you can always name a couple. Is Chariots of Fire up there?
No. Although when I was 18, I was obsessed with Without Limits, which is kind of a biopic of Steve Prefontaine, who was my idol when I was in high school. But I would have to say all time, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of hell for this, but I am a huge Matrix fan. So
wow.
the Matrix would probably be my all-time favorite.
Yeah, I mean, Tombstone.
That's a good one.
I have so many.
Way to go, Kev.
I have so many that I love, but that's up there. I love Wolf of Wall Street. I love all the gangs, Casino, Goodfellas, but then there's the comedies that, there's always the movie Rocky. There's a movie that comes on, which doesn't matter where it is in the I love Moneyball. Moneyball's underrated too. I like that movie. Favorite restaurant?
Clean Eats.
It's delicious.
Yeah. You sticking with Clean Eats?
Yeah, I'll stick with it.
Strong. I know, Kristen. That's where you take Kristen Friday night.
Yeah.
Just went to it this past weekend for my wife's birthday. Juju's in Durham.
Nice. Favorite pair of running shoes?
My Saucony Endorphin Speed.
Oh man, this is a tough. Actually, the ones Asics, I'd say the Asics Meta Speed.
The Meta Speed Sky that we got to run in Baltimore. Yeah.
Now, how much are a pair of those?
The Meta Speed Skies.
Asics were about $250.
Yeah. $250.
They're not on the. I run with the Ghost. I like Brooks.
Yeah, the Brooks Ghost is a solid shoe, but I will say the Saucony Endorphin Speed is only about $160. And at $160, you will be hard pressed to find a shoe better than that. It's a little bit lighter, more of a tempo run shoe, but you can definitely wear it for a long day. I definitely have.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's got a nylon plate, so you do get a little bit of a forward propulsion from it, like you would from the carbon plates of the super shoes, like the Meta Speed Sky, but definitely not at that price point.
All right, favorite sports team?
Carolina Panthers.
That's my boy.
Well, I think it kind of depends on the sport, because I'm also a gigantic Washington Capitals and Washington Nationals fan. So
I'm a big Panthers. I grew up with, and then big Canes fan. So I'm excited about already for the next hockey season. Won't be. I think the schedule is getting released any day.
Yeah. So, and I saw Seattle snagged Morgan Geekie from you guys. I can't believe you guys let him out of the building.
I don't understand it. So how about you, Kevin?
Yeah, my get some hate mail for this
Boo.
one.
I'm going to boo you before you even say it.
I've always been stuck to it, Duke Blue Devils.
I'm a Dookie too. We're good now. Now I'm a Dookie.
There's a connection.
Yeah, when I moved to Raleigh in '86, I was 7, and I didn't realize when I was moving here that, I'm from California originally, and out there was football, baseball. Moved here to Back Road. Now, that was the old ACC. That was only 9 teams or 8 teams before Florida State. And then my mom's the one that made me play basketball in 5th grade, literally made me. She's like, you're getting out of the house. And that's, of course, and then it was her fault. I became a college basketball coach, actually lived in Arkansas. But during the late 80s, that's when they fire and ice at NC State, Corchion Monroe. And in the early 90s, Bobby Hurley was my favorite player, man. That was my guy. I wore number 11. College basketball was a lot different then. People actually stayed more than a second and a half. And I remember when people were saying, they're going to leave early, that was like not coming back for your senior year. Yeah. I remember when Chris Webber from the Fab Five, they left after their sophomore year. And I was like, wow. I mean, even Shaq played 3 years. Grant Hill played 4 years. Can you believe that? It's amazing. All right. So here's another great question. I actually just threw this up. This is the first question I've thrown out here at the Super Terb Podcast. So you can have dinner with any 2 people, whether they're dead or alive. Who you have? Who's your guess?
Oh, man.
It's a good one, huh?
Yeah. Probably Dean Smith, because I'm a huge Carolina fan.
I got a great story for you, Ray.
I have to offset some of this Duke love. Man, I don't. I have no idea who that second one would be. That's huge. That's a big ask. Kev, go ahead and let me think on this a minute.
Yeah, I mean, we're sticking in running community. Steve Prefontaine would be a good guy to just kind of pick his brain, and he just seemed to have this big vision mind. So he'd be a good guy to sit dinner with. And, I'm a huge history buff. My dad being in the military for such a long period of time, retired after 26 years Army. And we lived in Germany for such a long period of time, and love just the history of the wars and being out there physically and being able to see. So Eisenhower, I know that's just kind of like way off, but just kind of president and military figure, just kind of hear their what makes them tick and how they are able to compartmentalize. And so those would be my 2.
My Dean Smith story, Gray. I was a junior in high school going back. We were flying back from Dallas. And I remember I was going back for team camp or something. I had a basketball tie on. And my dad, he's a retired captain with American Airlines. So we're waiting. And, we flew a lot of standby then, actually. And I look up and I was like, Dad, I think that's Dean Smith. And he was at the ticket counter. And we got 3 tickets. And one of them was first. And my dad says, take first and just maybe get lucky. And I had my ticket. Well, my seat was like row 6, and it was occupied. And the guy's like, well, just go ahead and sit up, where my seat was. And I turn around, and it's window, and there's Dean Smith in the aisle. So I flew to Raleigh with Dean Smith. And this is when he was still coaching, and I didn't talk to him for 2 hours. And, of course, when he was standing up to let me in, my tie drops, and it's a basketball tie. And my dad laughed because his eyes just got big. Like, oh, my God. And it was finally about, and he's looking through a Sports Illustrated magazine, and there's ads for Jordan and other Carolina players. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, you actually coach these guys. And it was about the last 10, 15 minutes. We had a conversation, just great guy. And I was like, what a lucky break that was, which was pretty amazing. And then I was a history major, Kevin. And I will tell you the best tour I ever did 5 years ago. It's actually coming to my memories because we were there. We did the Beyond Band of Brothers tour. And it was an 11-day tour. Band of Brothers is probably my favorite show. And I remember every Memorial Day, they always play a marathon of it. And I'm like, I wonder if they have a tour that follows the route of the Band of Brothers, Easy Company. And they did. And my dad and I, who is a veteran, he fought fighters in Vietnam, very patriotic, just loves his country. He'd never been to Omaha Beach. So to be able to stand on Omaha Beach with my father, it's the first time I ever seen my dad cry. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. We did 4 days at Normandy. Then we went up to Bastogne. I actually stood in the same foxholes as the Battle of the Bulge. They're still there, overlooking Foy. Then we went from there to Luxembourg. We went to Germany, actually went to the Eagle's Nest. And then we did a walking tour in Munich. And the tour guides were just phenomenal. Where the beer hall pooch was. It was just touching. It was just absolutely amazing. So if you could ever do it, unfortunately, that company didn't make it through COVID. But there is another tour that actually, it's the Stephen Ambrose Band of Brothers tour. I would just recommend it through the roof, because when you go to Normandy, I don't know if you've ever been to France. It was my first time ever being in Europe. We spent a couple days in Paris with my folks because they went out early, and they did about 5 days together. Then I flew in, spent a couple days with them, and then my mom flew home and we did the tour. But when you go into Normandy, it's like you're going back 80 years. 70 years. It's a lot of the buildings. You have the shrubberies or the trees, whatever they call it. Where when I actually jogged over there, and you're running and you can just feel, did you watch? I
was going to say, actually, I was there at the 50th year anniversary at D-Day in Normandy.
Wow.
And standing at Omaha, Utah Beach.
Yeah.
And
so 94?
It was, it was 94. Well, yep.
Wow.
So 94.
Corn road. Now it was hedgerows. I think it's called hedgerows, and they over there, and the scene in Band of Brothers where I think it's episode 2, where they take the guns out and winners, they took us to that field, which is absolutely amazing. So I kind of got off topic there, but
it's a beautiful place. I just remember those clips, how those guys
over there at Utah Beach, Point de Hoc.
Point de Hoc.
And they took that pretty fast. Actually, where half of them were lost was holding it. And you go in there and you can still see, Gray, you can go over there and it's still charred from the flamethrowers. And we actually stood in the same bunker from the movie The Longest Day, where the German looks out and he sees the whole troops. It's absolutely incredible. All right, so last question. Last question. I ask every guest on the Super Terb Podcast this. I'm going to make a book out of it. I always say that because I get great answers from everybody. Of course, there's no wrong answer. Best piece of advice you've ever received, and by who?
Probably from my dad. One of his many dadisms was, "You'll never make what you're worth until you're worth more than you make."
I like that. Kevin?
Best piece of advice, man, I've been given quite a bit. We talked about the passion and in many shapes and forms from different coaches, and then from my parents, just always pursue your passion. And I've just had this different outlook on just mortality, and just knowing that we get this opportunity once, so why not challenge yourself to do the things that you've always wanted to do. So just continue to always pursue your passions.
Mine is, I've only shared this one other time, but on the podcast, but I wanted to share with y'all, is I got it from my high school basketball coach, and that's to finish. Anything you do, obviously my father reiterated that too, but whatever you start, you finish. And I tell that, I coached, and also with my kids, and even when I coached my son's basketball team, whether even it's a layup and you miss it, you finish. Whatever you start, you finish. If you start a job, you finish. You start a season, you finish. Whatever you do. So I really take that to heart. So this has been awesome. We're not finished yet. Before we let you go, of course, you're going to stay with me on the last segment, of course, featuring my local beer of the week. Tell everybody where you can find the Two Dads Run podcast.
So we are on all the social medias, Instagram, YouTube, although we don't do much there yet. Facebook at Two Dads Run podcast. You can also stream us from wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff.
Cool. Well, I'm going to make sure I have, I'm going to put, I'll make sure I have the link and they can actually click on that, follow you guys as well. Everybody, it's a great listen. I'm very proud of you guys from where you start. I mean, you just started a short time ago, and the following that you gathered or captured has just been amazing because of the content you're providing. And like you said, I think it's really cool because it doesn't matter whether you've been running 5 minutes for 30 years or you're an Olympian or you're just trying to do that first turkey trot. You got people on there that's there to help and talk, and it's pretty cool. So stay with me. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, finish it up. We're going to talk about a local beer of the week that I want to feature, and then we'll wrap it up.
Awesome.
And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Out-of-Turbo Group, Coldwell Banker HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb, a.k.a. Coach Terb. And I'm back from my last segment, the local beer of the week. But Gray and Kevin are still with me. Say hello.
What's up, guys?
And I am going to talk about one of my favorite breweries. I always try to touch on different breweries, guys, in the area. As you know, in the Triangle, there's a lot of good beer and to choose from, and I try to highlight them. And these guys are really close to me. I've featured them several times. One of which I'm actually going to be doing my Halloween appreciation party at, which you both should be at. You're going to be there. It's kid-friendly. Costume party, October 30th. I give away prizes, and it's at Lonerider Brewery. Are you guys familiar with Lonerider?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so they have two areas or two locations in Raleigh by the airport, and then they have the hideout over in Wake Forest. But the one I wanted to feature tonight was one of their staples, their flagship beer, Shotgun Betty. Have you guys had that?
Is that the Hefeweizen?
It's the Hefeweizen. It's 5.8% alcohol, very smooth, very tasty. And I wanted to feature that because, again, it's available all 12 months, guys, around the year, but you can't go wrong with it. Again, go visit them. And then I also always like recommending the two great places I can get my local beer from. If you can't make it to Lonerider, they sell it there. It's over at Taylor's Wine Shop. Go say hello to Ben Cash. That's my friend up there. It's North Raleigh, north of, on Six Forks, and then Dee's Bottle Shop over there, Wakefield. They're my good friends. Tell them Terb sent you. They'll take great care of you. And I just can't thank you guys for being my guests, Gray, Kevin, Two Dads Run podcast. Check them out. You guys are awesome. And then as always, guys, I appreciate you listening. Episode 30 in the books. You know, like the average podcast doesn't get past episode 6.
Really? Didn't know that.
It's a stat.
That's awesome.
I know that.
Well, hey, you guys are at 18.
Before you go, I want to thank you for selecting a local beer of the week that I can actually drink and have drank. The craft beers and me usually do not get along, but I can drink that one. That's awesome.
A great beer. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. And so if you like the Super Terb Podcast, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends. But most importantly, guys, if you are in the real estate market, you're looking to buy or sell, please reach out to me. Again, it's Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Out-of-Turbo Group, Coldwell Banker HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb. And as always, guys, until next time, remember, who you work with matters. See ya.
Thank you.